Hello and welcome to another edition of Sustainable Scoop. I am Clay Weintraub and I would like to introduce Lynn Borton, award-winning radio talk show and podcast host of Choose to Be Curious. How are you today?
I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
That's great.
How are you?
I'm good. Why did you start a podcast?
Well, the podcast is called Choose to Be Curious, and I wanted to talk to people about curiosity. And I thought, what better place to do it than through a podcast or radio show, which gave me an excuse and an easy way to invite people to have those conversations.
Yeah. When did you start a podcast?
I first got started in May of 2016, so it's been 8 and some years.
What are some of your goals for your podcast?
So it's a show about curiosity itself, and the title sort of says it. I want to encourage people to choose to be curious. And so one of my goals is that people hear about curiosity and think about curiosity more and in different ways than they might otherwise, and that they find ways to choose to be curious and bring curiosity into their lives in new ways. Because I think the research says that it's good for relationships, it's good for memory and learning, innovation, but it's also, I think, good for our society. And I think that's an important thing for us to be thinking about right now.
What kind of guests do you have on the podcast?
All kinds of people. I talk to researchers who actually study curiosity, but I also like to talk to people who are kind of curiosity on the streets, not in the ivory tower, but just in the ways that you and I use it in our lives and maybe in our work. So it's everything from someone who is an artist and how they might use curiosity in their work, to somebody who's an executive coach and how curiosity can be used in the workplace, to how curiosity might show up in animals.
What is your target audience?
Everybody, but that's not really a good answer. I think the people that listen to my show are people who are themselves curious and who are interested in programs or TED Talks, or who like to be exposed to new ideas and people they might not have heard from before. So I'm always trying to find people from lots of different constituencies in hopes that they'll bring their friends and acquaintances in to the audience as well. How
do you promote your podcast?
Not well enough is the answer to that. I have a website, choosetobecurious.com. I use social media, so I have an Instagram account at Choose to Be Curious and a Facebook page at Choose to Be Curious. And I post the shows, but also related information. So I'll share the website of a researcher, for instance, and I tag everybody as much as I possibly can to try to attract attention. I have a Choose to Be Curious button that I give to people and that I wear, and that helps attract audiences. And I started at WERA, but I'm now syndicated through the Pacifica radio network, and that gets me out to many more radio stations. So currently I'm on 17 stations, and I'm hoping it will be more.
What do you think makes your show stand out to people?
When I got started, not a lot of people were talking about curiosity. In fact, people used to think that I was doing a show about creativity. That's what they'd make that connection and that assumption. Now a lot more people are talking about curiosity, but there are not a lot of people who take the kind of broad view that I do and do both the academics and the as applied. And I sort of challenge myself to think of it in new and different ways. And I think that stands out to people. And I think it also it's really conversational. I try to make it really comfortable and approachable. And I feel like that's a good role model for encouraging people to be curious. At least that's what I hope.
What are some challenges of sustaining a podcast?
It's a lot more work than people think it is. I don't know how much time I spend on it, but I have a weekly show. It's 28 minutes. But that's the short version of it. There's all the work ahead of time, doing the research, securing the guests, scheduling the guests, then doing the interview, then doing the editing, and then doing the uploading and distribution and promotion. So one challenge is making it sustainable. is, kind of keeping up the level of effort and finding ways to manage the workflow so that it stays fun. Because if it stops being fun for me, it's not going to be fun for the audience.
Have you ever interviewed someone with disabilities?
Yeah, actually I have. Very early on, actually, I interviewed a young man who was blind and talked about sort of what's it like to navigate without the benefit of sight, and sort of how his curiosity is influenced by different things and his reliance on different senses. I've also interviewed, I come out of the mental health field, and so I've interviewed several people with a history of mental illness. And I did a show with a researcher who was interested in curiosity, measuring curiosity in people who are neurodiverse. And so I didn't actually interview them, but I had several young students from the lab school talking about what their idea of curiosity was as part of that episode as well.
You mean the Lab School of Washington?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I went to their division in Baltimore.
Oh, well, there you go. Yeah.
Do you use AI in your program either for research, writing, or marketing your show?
I have just started to try using some AI. There's some software that I'm experimenting with that generates a transcript of the recordings and then allows me to edit the audio through the transcript. And the transcription is not perfect. It's pretty good. It's actually pretty impressive. It's not perfect. So that's been my first kind of foray into AI. Some of the platforms that I use for social media offer AI to sort of write my copy or, generate a summary of my shows. And I haven't wanted to do that because I'm a little skeptical that it will have the same sort of texture and sort of, like, it won't have my voice. It won't have sort of quite the same personality. But I'm curious. I want to experiment.
Well, is there anything else you'd like to share?
This is, my favorite question. Did you know that I interviewed someone who does evaluation for nonprofit organizations, and she says she has all these metrics and tools and things that she uses, and so they're all validated scientifically and everything. And she said the best question ever she always asks at the end is anything else. So you've just asked the best question ever. And I guess I would say, a podcast is a lot of fun. It's a lot of work. But it's, for me, particularly during the pandemic, when the world was shutting down and people's worlds were kind of getting more and more limited, mine kept expanding, and I kept meeting new and interesting people. And I think that's a gift that podcast offers.
I want to thank Lynn Borton.
Mm-hmm.
I am Clay Weintraub. This is Sustainable Scoop. See you next time.